All right, good morning, everyone. And let's get things rolling here. I'm going to share my screen really quick and then let's see that desktop. Can everyone see I have a canvas window up, Rhino window underneath it, hopefully. Really quickly, let's talk about the agenda today. Let me drag this off. Just keep that chat box up in case somebody types something. So agenda for the day, first we'll do some troubleshooting, clarifying, see how everybody's progressing with project one. And then I'll demonstrate the last part of project one, which is generating the isometric drawing. Again, this will all be recorded and I'll post it on YouTube after class. It takes a little while for it to post-process and then get uploaded and then get processed on YouTube. And then I have to watch it and try to time key it for you a little bit here and there. But that'll be up today. So we'll demonstrate how to generate that PDF deliverable that you can submit by Monday or by next Tuesday, right? And then we'll talk a little bit about starting module 2 today in parallel with you finishing project 1, okay? So there'll be another assignment for you guys to do. It'll be a LinkedIn Learning assignment. I don't necessarily love that, but I from past experience, this particular set of modules that you'll watch over the weekend are really effective. And so the key thing is how do we learn everything really quickly, absorb it so we can apply it then during the week. Related to that, let me just, I just realized maybe I didn't publish that module 2, so that should be published now. That should show up for you. But let me just double check. Annoyingly, I have to sort of see, I have to click a link to sort of see what you see here. If I go to modules, module 1, module 2. Okay, great. So let's go to module 1 and let's just talk again, make sure everybody's clear on what we're doing in project 1 here. We talked all about this yesterday. When we go to the schedule workflow, that was Tuesday. Like I said, there's a link here to the lecture from Tuesday now. Wednesday, we didn't have class, as you remembered or didn't remember and found out the hard way. Again, the idea was to get work on your own and then come today with any problems and challenges so we can do some troubleshooting, which we'll do in just a sec. Here's today, troubleshooting, right? So that's the first thing we'll do. Then again, the PDF of your isometric drawing is due on Tuesday. And so once we get done sort of talking about the problems you guys had with moving things with the snaps and that kind of stuff that, you know, there were some issues I think that popped up and some of you emailed me about them and that's great. We'll talk about those, work on some workarounds, make sure everybody's on the right track and can continue working. I don't want anybody spinning their wheels, so to say, over the weekend. I want you guys to be productive. And then I'll demonstrate this last part, which is make 2D, draw isometric, setting the isometric view, exporting to Illustrator, adjusting a few line weights here and there, saving as a PDF, and then submitting that thing. Down here at the bottom, you know, after these instructions in the rubric, I did post a link to where you're supposed to be able to submit your final PDF drawing. And again, it's submit assignment. It'll only let you submit a PDF. And so hopefully that works for you. If for some reason it's not working for you and you're trying to submit, just let me know. I'm not going to penalize if there's some sort of mass problem here, I'm not going to penalize everybody for having a late assignment if you couldn't submit the darn thing. So, but just let me know. I would think that hopefully this would be able to, you know, would work. I'm not sure why assignments aren't showing up on your end. I'm going to go ahead and toggle back and leave student view for a moment. Suffice to say, then towards the end, we'll talk about this module 2, how you can log into LinkedIn Learning, which is the new name for lynda.com. You can log in through UNLV for free. And then there's some specific tutorial videos that I want you to go through and watch over the weekend, like I said. So, okay, that's the agenda for today. And let's take things one step at a time. First off, maybe just informally in the chat, anybody done with the assignment? They modeled everything, you have a model. You're like, come on, Josh, just show me how to do the axon or the isometric PDF so I can submit this thing and I'll be done with it. Anybody want to just sort of voluntarily raise their hand in the chat box or something? Go for it. But I suspect that there might have been some issues, some problems, some challenges. And so now's the time to ask any of those questions that you had from yesterday or last night or the night before, whatever, when you were trying to work on this stuff. And if everything worked perfectly, then that's great. You guys rock. And we can just move on to the next step. And if there's no questions, but I suspect there's probably some questions, right? I'd be really surprised if there was no troubleshooting at all to do. Very surprised. I'm having a problem. Sure, Cameron, what's up? Use your mic, or if it's easier to type it.
Yeah, I can talk real quick. I'm at work, so I can't talk a ton. I'm on my lunch break, but
Sure.
it is noise in here. I'm having problems. So I've made all of the figures, and I've made them into shapes. And so I'm at the point where I'm trying to rotate them and get them into the cube.
Sure.
But when I try and pick up a shape, the shape will stay on the ground, and the 3D thing is separate. They're not, even though I've tried joining them, it's like two separate entities
great.
when I try to move
Cameron.
it.
Okay, great. I understand. And so you drew a shape out here, then you extruded it into a solid, right?
Yes.
So
And then,
you still have the curve and the solid. You don't need the curves any longer.
okay, so I can delete the curves.
You can delete those. Yeah.
Or not worry about them and just worry about the solids.
Exactly. All you need are the solids. Yeah.
Okay. And then once we have it all put together, just save it as a PDF and then submit it.
That's what I'll get to here in a minute once we get troubleshooting the first part. So then I'll get to the second part. I'll do a demonstration on how to set this up as a 3030 isometric. We'll do a make 2D command. We will probably use the intersect command as well. We'll export to Illustrator. We'll adjust some line weights in Illustrator really quickly, called stroke. Then we'll save it as a PDF, and then that'll be the submittable. So I just wanted to save that workflow for today. So we'll get to that here shortly. I'll also be recording it and posting it on YouTube again. So, okay.
Awesome. Thank you. That helps a lot.
No problem. Anybody else have problems with?
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, so when we're dividing up our cube, like our boxes and stuff, I didn't want to just run a straight line through it. So I was having a hard time closing them after I kind of did like not a zigzag line, but an up and down line.
Sure. Let me try to simulate that on my screen and let's talk through it. Sound good?
Uh-huh.
I suspect you're not the only person that had a problem with that. Let's say I want to cut this shape. Really quickly, actually, let me just get the shape out, the outline of it here. There's a way to do that. Just pull the edges off. So right now I just have the solids on this model, and I'm just going to quickly go around and get the, not sure why this thing isn't, okay, there, it's rotating better now. I'm just going around and selecting each edge and making that a shape again. All right, and I'll just pull that off to the side here and use that. Okay, so let's say I wanted to cut this shape, just like an L or something. And you're talking about maybe making it a cut like that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so there's a couple different ways you can think about this. This is Amanda, right? I think, yeah, okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the split command. So I'll type in split. I'm gonna split this object. Sorry, let me just join these together. Join, right? I guess this is just a nice recap of the other day anyway. Select the objects to join. I'm trying to select them. I want to let me drag. That's annoying. Okay, so it said closed, one closed curve. Okay, sorry. So this is a closed curve. Now I've drawn this. I'm going to use this to split. Okay, so select object to, no wait, not explode. Split, sorry. I just type in the command split too. It's probably easier. So I'll go ahead and select this object to split, and then I'll use the cutting object to split with. Okay, now I have both of these. All right. Now, one thing I could do is I could just sort of select each of these pieces and pull them off as a copy, right? And I could delete this old shape. And now I have, you know, this. And now all I have to do really is just sort of trim these up and then join them together again. Okay. But I've kept this. Or if I had to sort of spitball it here, when I have my object snaps on and I also have Smart Track. You see the Smart Track where my cursor is down here at the bottom?
Mm-hmm.
So if I have Smart Track enabled, and it's obvious, like I need a corner where this edge and this edge would hypothetically intersect in ortho view, then oftentimes Smart Track, I can't know why I can't say that today. Smart Track will find that point out in space for me. So I can, do it that way if I wanted to, okay? Same thing here. I mean, I could always try to, Smart Track works really well sometimes when I'm not trying to demonstrate it in front of people. That was a joke, sorry, it was lame. I'm full of dad jokes. And then once I have that, again, I just want to sort of make sure I select all of those and type in join them into one closed curve. I'll select these as well, type in join. Okay. All right, so there's more than one way to sort of do it, right? And show the model so you can let us know if there's something wrong. Is it possible to show the models? So did that answer that address what
Yes.
one of the difficulties you're having? Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
No problem, thank you. And good question. Juan, are you asking if you can share your screen and show your model? I'm getting a private message that's like, is it possible to show the model? I'm trying to talk and read and type at the same time. Okay. Another question or problem that popped up when doing this is that it seems like when the cube is on, this happened to me too, right? When I was doing the demonstration on Tuesday, is that I put this cube, I drew the 60-foot by 60-foot cube as a sort of reference to sort of fit within as a sort of volume, right? And then when I was trying to put things inside, I couldn't snap to anything on the inside of that cube, which was really annoying. I mean, could it be any stupider in that sense? Sorry, this sort of slid around me. So what I did is I put that cube on a different layer that I could turn on and off and just use as a reference, right? So I was moving these things in place and rotating them in, let's say, a side view, and then snapping and moving them in place. But then I would just turn the cube on and make sure, everything looks all right. If something was needed to slide over, then I would just sort of gumball it over if I need to, and that sort of thing. Okay, as I went. And so I was just using the cube as kind of a reference while I was just sort of quickly, and I just did this, like, I mean, this is not a great model, but I had like 2 minutes before class started, so I just put something together for the demonstration for the ISO drawing. So Juan, you had a private question for me, but I mean, just let me know, just speak up if you need something. If there's a specific problem that you have where you need to share a screen, just let me know, and then I can share the screen with you. I can make you the host. I can always claw that back if I need to. But what other questions you guys run into or problems? Anybody else? Like I said, is anybody done? I'm curious. Yeah.
I'm just noticing on your model that you have some of the shapes intersecting each other. Yeah. Is that okay to do on ours? Okay, great.
I think so. Can the pieces intersect, or should we act as if we're gluing them? And Mindy just had the same question. I'm inclined to say, show me a good intersection, and I'm fine with that. With foam core, obviously, it would have been different. Like you would have had to sort of find these things. You can pick one way or the other. Okay, I don't mind them intersecting if you want to do that. Okay. In fact, we'll talk in our workflow today when I did the demonstration for the isometric drawing. We're going to make a line drawing, and while we're doing that, we're going to actually have to find those intersections and just make sure that they show up with lines. Luis says, can our shapes be slightly outside the cube? Yeah, indeed. I mean, if they're within a real small tolerance, then yeah, I'm not going to like hold the cube up. You're going to delete the cube. I don't want the cube. Right, that's just the sort of the volume to sort of keep all these things sort of inside of a cube, and to fill out a cube shape with these planes of a certain size. So if they're just slightly over, I mean, no one's going to hold up a ruler to this or anything. You're submitting a PDF line drawing of just this without the cube. Okay, So does that help? I mean, you know, if I would never know, then don't worry about it. Touching the edge of the cube, or are we just eyeballing it? Oh, when I came to touching the cube, here's how I managed to think about that. Good question. And so, you know, sometimes what I would do is I would take some of these, first of all, and, you know, I would just select, maybe I had a strategy, maybe I didn't. But let's say I select certain shapes and I would just rotate them up, upwards, and let's say one of my side views, right? And so then I'd have a set of horizontals and a set of verticals. So let's say I want to like make this a main horizontal that touches one of the edges of the cubes. In that case, what I would do is I would snap, and I would snap to a part in the cube, right? I could turn that cube off afterwards. And if I wanted to move this, you know, and slide it over, you know, but I wanted to make sure that that corner stayed put, I could move it just in the y-axis or the z-axis direction without moving in the x-axis. Okay. So to me, you know, you can kind of eyeball it too. I mean, again, the cube is just there as a reference, like a sort of the sort of allowable envelope to work with inside. But it does say to like try to define three of those edges, at least three edges, with some parts of your model, right? So it's a good point. In that case, what I try to do is just snap to an edge or a corner, and then I could slide in one direction or the other, move in one axis or the other, or two axes. Okay. Yeah, no problem. And then Taylor, your question, do the pieces have to make contact with another? Yeah, this needs to be one piece. And so ideally, they all would connect somehow, right? So if you have a, you know, that 14th or 15th piece and you're like, what the heck? You know, maybe you need to like sort of position that so that it connects, you know, some of these things together, right? But I think that's one of the key things, right? Is that this looks like it's one sort of composition, not two or three within the same volume. Okay, so one composition. So you do want one adjacency. You do want things to touch or intersect. Okay. Yeah. Again, you know, these questions are great. You know, honestly, you know, while I still have my screen up, you know, when you go to that module, hopefully this works for you guys. Let's see, where am I? Where are the modules? Oh, right there. This is the least intuitive organization for these things as far as I'm concerned, but whatever. I like to complain, you know. So here's the YouTube video. I'll just open it up. But what I try to do, oh gosh, let me pause that, is to, in the comments down below, is to sort of give you a table of contents with the time code. So if you're like, oh, okay, so I remember someone asking me a question about how to pan and zoom and stuff, right? You can just go right to it, right? And then it'll, you know, it'll take you right there. So I try to do that when I can. I don't always have, you know, I don't know, what you'd say, a lot of time in my hands, but I try to do that. You know, I think it's really helpful. And like I said, this is just my UNLV YouTube channel, so I use it for other digital media classes and things like that. So here it is. Again, it's linked. And here's the thing, you always go to these modules, right? So module 1, you know, you just look, okay, where were we? What did we do last time? Where was that lecture that was recorded? What are we doing for Thursday or the next Tuesday, you know, or whatever, right? This is the one-stop shop, hopefully, to sort of understand what's happening. Okay. So again, just make sure, you know, you're utilizing this. You know, it takes a bunch of time to sort of, you know, translate these and upload them, and then it takes a while for them to be processed, and then to be processed in HD as opposed to standard display and all that stuff. So, you know, just utilize them. You know, make sure you're using them. Can the pieces go through other pieces? Yeah, they can intersect. One, yeah, you can have them go through if you want to. But I would argue that then that becomes a sort of consistent way of sort of thinking about your project. So you're going to have like all intersections. So there's an attitude about like having everything intersect or having nothing intersect, right? And having everything sort of adjacent or flush. Okay, I would pick one or the other. I wouldn't try to do both. Okay, so snaps then become important if you're really interested in making things flush. When you move the pieces from laying down to standing up, did you change the color of the pieces or did the program do it by itself? Oh, good question. So here's the problem. So theoretically, these should actually be being displayed in shaded view as orange because that's my layer color. But for some reason, this is a function of me running Rhino 6 on Windows 10 through Parallels on Mac OS. So it's like running an operating system inside of another operating system, and with a specific video card drivers that don't necessarily, it has something to do with how OpenGL works in Rhino and not liking the Windows drivers for the Mac hardware. So it's kind of screwy on my end. No, typically they will just change when you select them, like they'll change the color, selection color. This is what they should look like, but it seems like every time I rotate my view or move something, then they turn to that sort of gray, and that's just a glitch on my interface. Okay, so don't worry about that. In fact, these colors are these colors for the layers, they're not pretty. So use them in a way that just makes it easier to sort of understand the contrast between the different parts and the different layers that you have. Okay, you'll never actually just sort of show these and say like, oh, well, my surface is chartreuse green, and except for these other surfaces that are burnt orange, right? Those look terrible. So, I mean, the colors for the layers when we're modeling like this is usually just to help us visually sort of understand what we're looking at. They're not an aesthetic choice typically, I wouldn't pick this color scheme, that's for sure. There really isn't if you look at color theory, there really isn't a rhyme or reason to this. Okay, so don't worry about that. So how about this? Let me go ahead and do the demonstration for the second part, and then we can go back to asking more questions. Okay, hopefully that's good. But I do want to get to the demonstration, make sure we have enough time to do everything and adequately explain everything. Juan says, sounds good. Okay, well, if I got Juan's blessing, then let's go. All right, so I'm just going to select all of this stuff. I'm just going to hide it really quickly temporarily in this file. Go ahead and save. Okay, let's say I have my model. Okay, so there's a couple of steps to this. If you're jotting any notes down, this is probably what you want to jot down is the sort of steps. So step one, we're going to define an isometric view for one of our viewports. Okay, and we're going to make it an isometric 30-30. It'll say parallel in the viewport, and we can pick between northeast, northeast, northwest, southwest, southeast, right? So they're the cardinal directions, assuming that x axis is pointed east and y axis and top view is pointed north. And so that's the first step. We're going to set the view and make sure that we have an isometric. Then we're going to run an intersect tool to make sure that we have all of the edges that we need. Then we'll run a command called make 2D. Again, I'll repeat this and I'll go over it, and I'll probably do this multiple times. But I just want to make sure you guys know where we're going. So as an outline, we'll do the make 2D. That'll give us a flattened two-dimensional hidden line drawing of this three-dimensional model that we created. And then once we have that line drawing, we can export it out as an Illustrator file, and we can bring it into Adobe Illustrator. In Illustrator, we will look at the layers and adjust some line weights, right, to give this thing visually some hierarchy and some weight. And then from there, we can save it directly as a PDF, and that can be uploaded to as your assignment, as your project 1 deliverable. Okay, so that's the roadmap. And without any further ado, let's just go ahead and perform all the steps. Okay, so I have my model, and look, you might have random pieces and all the outlines and shapes over here. What I recommend doing is when you get to this part, you're going, okay, I just want to look at my model. Put all that other stuff, if you haven't already, on its own layer, and you can turn that layer off, okay? And so that way you can just look at what you have here, right? And you don't get anything else in the way, or you don't have anything accidentally sort of showing up in your drawing, okay? In my viewport, I'm going to go ahead and blow up my viewport. I'm going to double click on the viewport label that toggles from the 4 viewport display to just blowing up maximizing the 1 viewport that I double clicked on, right? In this case, it's perspective view. That's a 3-dimensional view, right? And I'm going to then click on that label and get this pull-down menu, okay? And just a little over halfway down, there's an option called Set View. There's a little caret off to the side saying that if you hold your cursor over it, then you're going to get another sub-menu, okay? So again, clicked on this arrow for the perspective to open up this menu, went to set view, got the sub menu. Okay, I can set this viewport to be any of these drawing types or orientations, like top, bottom, left, right, front, back, perspective, 2-point perspective. Aha, and at the bottom is isometric. Okay, again, there's another caret for yet another sub menu. Okay, isometric, and here's where I can select like northeast isometric, northwest, southeast, southwest. Okay. Now the difference between a perspective and an isometric drawing, an isometric, all of the edges going in a particular direction remain parallel, right? Whereas in a perspective, they all look like they would contract and converge onto a vanishing point off in space somewhere, right? So I think you'll see the difference when I go ahead and select this, right? Northeast. Okay. Now see, everything moving in the x-axis is parallel. Everything moving in the y-axis is parallel to each other, and everything moving in the z-axis is parallel to each other. Okay. All right. So that was northeast. I'm just going to go ahead and show this again. You know, again, if I wanted to set this to ISO or any view, right? Change the view in my viewport. You know, I click on this arrow, go to set view. Here are my options, including isometric, and let's just look and see what northwest looks like. No, that one's interesting too. Not so bad. I'm gonna have to make a decision here. I'm just gonna look at each one till I find that one's less interesting. It's kind of boring, to be honest. Snooze fest. All right, southwest. I think one of those first two are better. And the reason I say that one's kind of nice. This one looks vertical, which is interesting since they all fit in the same cube. That one looks a little more horizontal. Maybe I'll pick this one. In my case, I'm picking, I think I just picked northwest isometric, right? And that's something that you're gonna have to decide on your own, okay? All right, what happens is that all of these are, if you think about a sort of horizontal line running through the drawing, all of these are 30 degrees from that horizontal, right? And then of course the z-axis is vertical, okay? So this is a 30-30 isometric, and it's a true isometric now, okay? I wanna make sure and be very careful I don't accidentally click my right mouse button and do that. Now it's not a 30-30 isometric anymore, right? Oops, sorry, I was undoing, okay, redo. You can always undo the view change, but even if you just move it slightly, then it's off, right? And that's not good, right? So you can always go back and go, okay, I made it isometric northwest. Okay, oh, perfect, there it is, right? That's really important because the next thing we're going to do is use the, well, when we do make the drawing, it's gonna make it exactly how we see it in our viewport. And so we wanna make sure that it's set exactly to the isometric that we want, okay? Okay, so that's just simply turning our viewport into isometric view and making sure that we have the most interesting view of our model, okay? Again, that's something that you're gonna have to sort of eyeball yourself as far as, you know, picking which side to sort of make a drawing of, right? I guess for extra credit, or, you know, just if you're just for fun, just to practice, you could do all 4 sides and make 4 drawings, but. All right, next step. All right, I'm going to, because, well, let me back up. Because I have planes intersecting other planes, okay, when I do the make 2D command, like let's say, for instance, I don't know if you guys can see my cursor, I'm gonna shake it a little bit, right in there, right? See how I have this piece, it's a longer piece, it's horizontal, sliding through this vertical rectangle, right? So this intersection edge, right? That's actually not gonna show up in our make 2D drawing by default. It's really annoying that it doesn't do that for us, okay? And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the intersect command in order to generate the edges ourselves as curves, okay? And so the next command that you're gonna use, okay, now that we've set our viewport to the right vantage point, isometric, we're gonna use the intersect command. I just typed in intersect in my command line, okay? Coming down, intersect. And I'm just gonna select all of the objects in my model all at once, okay? They're all selected now, and hit enter when I'm done selecting everything, okay? And now what you'll see is selected here are all the lines and curves and things like that that it made around those intersections, okay? And I'm just going to deselect them and leave them, all right? But what's important about that is that those lines and curves will now, those edges will show up when we do the Make 2D, okay? So again, that was just using the Intersect tool, okay? That was step 2, intersect. And what I wanted to do is just make sure that, you know, I have these intersections, that I have these edges drawn with lines, so that when it comes time to make the line drawing, I have less to actually like clean up or add in or anything like that, okay? The idea is hopefully Rhino will automate everything for us, okay? Now I think you'll see what I mean in just a minute. It might be a little confusing at the moment. Step 3, let's make the drawing itself, okay? This is the next command. It's called Make 2D, and it's all one word, M-A-K-E 2D, okay? And it's just going to ask us the objects to draw. I'm in my parallel viewport, right? The one with the isometric. And I'm going to select everything again that I want to draw. So I'm going to select all my objects. I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to bring up a box. Now let's take a look at these settings. A lot of these I leave, look, a lot of these I leave as the default. So you probably just don't want to change them. But what it's saying is that, okay, what view do you want me to draw? In this case, it's saying the active view is parallel. So it wants to draw this parallel, you know, this isometric drawing for us, which is great. I'm going to leave this as default. I'm going to leave this as default. Now it's going to ask us, do we want to draw the hidden lines? And you can have the hidden lines on. I'll leave the hidden lines on just so you see what those look like. The scene silhouette, yes, I want to make sure that that's checked. Viewport rectangle, I'm not going to bother with the viewport rectangle. What that will do is actually give you an outline of the viewport outline. I'm going to uncheck that for a moment. And okay, so, and I'm going to, this is what I have checked, right? Hidden lines and scene silhouette. Don't worry about this clipping plane intersections if you don't see it. Mine's grayed out, so don't worry about that. I'm just going to hit OK. And just look what it does. It'll give me the little blue spinning disc. Now I'm going to move out to top view. So what it drew this drawing, and it laid it out on the XY plane somewhere in the sort of positive X, positive Y coordinate from that 0, 0 point, okay? Now this is a flat drawing, so if I look at it in my parallel view, you'll see it, right? It's quite literally just in a flat plane, right? And so in top view, now I'm going to export this out to an Illustrator file. But what it did, it also gave me and separated all these different line types on different layers for me, okay? So for instance, all of the visible curves, all of the hidden curves, right? So we turn the hidden curves off, right? Now it looks like a nice hidden line drawing, right? These are all the hidden curves. So we could, you know, leave those on and turn them to dash lines if we want, right? There's also the scene silhouette. So when it comes to line weight strategies, typically, you know, you go around the outside edges of things, of the objects, you know, where like an edge where there's an object on one side and just air or space on the other, right? You beef that up a little bit, right? So you make it a little bit of a thicker, darker line weight. And so that actually draws that shape out for us, called scene silhouette as well, okay? So that's why I wanted that to be toggled and checked, okay? All right, so I'm just going to delete that. Let's just do that step one more time to make sure that you know, especially if you're viewing at home. A couple things here, right? So we'll have to go through the workflow again because I accidentally changed my view, right? So I went first step. I want to go ahead and make sure I go to the viewport, set view, set it to the right isometric view, right? Okay. I already did the intersections. I already have those. I'm going to go ahead and do Make 2D. Select the objects to draw. I'm going to select them in let's say, the isometric viewport. Okay. And hit enter. Okay. You can leave hidden lines on if you want, and you'll see what those look like when I do them in Illustrator. Okay, I leave that as optional for you. Okay? The scene silhouette I do want to be clicked on, and I'm going to hit OK. Okay. And again, you'll see over in the top view, in my top viewport, right, when it finally was finished drawing, it put them over here. Okay. All right. Actually, you know what? I would just say don't do the hidden lines. Yeah, hidden lines, yeah. I forgot to turn the hidden lines off from the first time and didn't delete them. Ugh, what a mess. Okay, now there looks like there's a few little mistakes here, right? Like this line should extend all the way over here. Okay. It looks like I'm missing this edge extending over here. So every once in a while, there's a little glitch here. what I'm going to do is I'll just do this one more time and see if that makes any difference. I'm not sure why sometimes it does these things. Again, one last time. Here's the workflow. Isometric, right? If we haven't already, I need to do the intersect command. Then I'll do a make 2D, select the objects to draw. I want to make sure I have everything clicked on or clicked off here. I'm going to turn off hidden lines. It's not worth it. And I'll hit, maybe I'll turn on tangent edges and see what that happens. See what that does. All right, now I'm just going to look at this and audit it real quick. Oh, I actually got something much cleaner that time. Oh yeah. So in that case, I turned on tangent edges and unclicked the hidden lines, and it gave me something a little better there. There's still a mess right here. I'm not sure what that looks like. Oh, it looks supposed to look like this. And for some reason, it didn't draw that edge there. Okay. So you might need to audit your drawing just a little bit and clean some things up. In this case, right, I could do this several different ways. In Rhino, I could basically extend this to this corner, right? So if I click on this line and then I click on this point, let me try to see if I can zoom in here and do that, right? Then I can move just this point. I can say type in move, and then snap to that point, and then snap to this edge, okay? And then I could just copy, right, C-O-P-Y, this line also over here. And then I could just start to trim some things out. So I could use this to trim this. Again, I'm just spitballing here. Again, it's not, I'm not, you know, oh, and I'll just need to trim. So I'll use this to trim that away, right? All right, that looks a little cleaner, right? And yours might look better than mine, right? I'm not sure if you necessarily need to do any of that. Hopefully you don't, right? Look at that. For some reason, it just didn't quite close up. Again, I'm just selecting the line, and then once this, in my interface, once the points, the endpoints are displayed, I can actually select a specific point, and then again, I can type in move, and move, I don't know why it said trim, and click, and click. I have my object snaps on, so I can easily click to that endpoint and easily click to another endpoint and snap things to close them, okay? Just going through quickly, making sure everything looks good before I move, go all the way to exporting, okay? This looks pretty good. You know, honestly, this thing right here is flush with that. So maybe I'm just going to delete this. Yeah. This part, let's see what else. Yeah. Okay, so that looks good enough for me. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and save. Remember, hit that Control S or Command S on your keyboard, like habitually with your left hand. Like make that just a really good habit. You're constantly saving. Save early, save often, right? Is the mantra. So now that I have my isometric drawing in my my top view in the XY plane, it's flat. I can bring that into Illustrator, okay? And the easiest way to do that is just to select everything, right? Okay, I've just clicked and dragged and selected my drawing in top view. And I'm gonna go to File, pull down, and I'm gonna say Export Selected. Everybody see? I went to File, pull down, Export Selected. All right. Now, it's gonna ask me where do I wanna save this just selected drawing that I've done, and what kind of file do I wanna save it as, okay? So I'm gonna go down to the file type, and I'm actually gonna pick a native Adobe Illustrator file right here. It's Adobe Illustrator. The extension will be AI.ai for Adobe Illustrator. And I'll just, I'll type in project 1 ISO demonstration, isometric demonstration, or something like that, okay? Snapshot of current view. I'm just gonna leave this as is. RGB is fine. I'm not gonna worry about that. I'm gonna hit okay, okay? And I wanna make sure that I do that from top view, okay? That way I get the nice flat version of it, right? It's like taking a photo of it on your desktop, right? If it was taped down to your drafting table, right? Okay. Now I have an Illustrator file that I can open up in Illustrator, which makes sense. So Illustrator, I'm just firing that up right now. The icon's bouncing up and down on my my tray here. Here's the splash screen for it. It should pop up here in a minute. Okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm open up Illustrator, and I'm just going to open that Illustrator file directly within. Okay, so how do you change shapes from one layer to another? Great, so while Illustrator is popping up, let's say I need to select some of this stuff and put it on its own layer. Okay. First of all, let's say I want to put them on the default layer, and right now they're on the model layer or something like that. I can select the object or objects, and then I go to the properties box, and it tells me what layer they're currently on, and I can go to this pull down and pick a different layer and put it on a different layer. Okay. So if you modeled something and you're like, oh, wow, that's on the wrong layer, right? You can always select it, go to its properties, and then just change which layer it's on. Okay. And hopefully that answered your question, Juan. In the meantime, Illustrator fired up. Yes, great. Perfect. All right. Okay, so here's Illustrator. I'm going to go ahead and open up that AI file that I made. File, open. Here's project ISO demo. So there's the Illustrator file that I just created from Rhino. I'm going to hit open. Okay. Now there's some strange steps in this process. And so that's why I want to make sure I record this for you guys so you can go back and refer to it when you need to, okay? I'm not going to pretend that all of this is intuitive the first time you do it, but you learn it by practicing, okay? And so the more you do it, the more it sticks with you. Okay? There's a couple of things here. One is that I'm going to go to the document setup here at the top, okay? And click and hit Edit Artboards. It's going to bring up a window or another box here with settings. I'm going to hit Edit Artboards. I'm just going to look and see what size document I have. In this case, it's set to 8.5 by 11. And I'm going to change that so the width is going to be 17 inches and height's going to be 11 inches. Okay. Now, really quickly, if you don't see these settings up here at the top, right? Don't worry, don't freak out. Here's how you find them. If you go to Windows pull down and you go to Workspace and you go to Essentials Classic, okay, then it'll bring up a set of tools over here on the toolbar on the left-hand side, a set of boxes over here on the right-hand side, right, including color and line weight, stroke, and then a bunch of settings up here along the top. Okay, so that's why I have a document set up, and then Edit Artboards here. Okay, and then when I do the Edit Artboards, it's showing me, and I can click and drag the size of this thing, right? But it also lets me enter these in as parameters up here. So the size of the document very precisely, I could say 17 inches by 11 inches or something like that. Okay. All right, I'm going to select all of this stuff, and I'm just going to sort of resize it a bit here to fit on my 11 by 17. And I can just use my arrow keys and just sort of move it around to try to center it up a bit here. Okay. All right. To zoom in and out in Illustrator, if you're using Windows, it's Control plus and Control minus. If it's the Mac, it's Command plus and Command minus. Okay, so I can zoom in, zoom out, Control plus, Control minus. If I'm zoomed in or zoomed out really big, I just want to sort of fit it back to my screen, Control 0 or Command 0. Right. Put it back. Okay, give myself a little bit of breathing space here. Okay, so there's a set of boxes over here, and one of them is layers. And what's nice about this is when I go during the export process from Rhino to Illustrator, it preserves all of the layers that we had in Rhino. For the line work that we exported out, it preserves that layer information in here in Illustrator. Okay, so we'll be using the layers box. This icon that has a couple of looks like layered sheets sort of stacked on top of each other. Okay, and then there's an icon here called stroke, which is another word for line, right? So we can look at stroke, we can adjust the line weight, and we can adjust the line types and even make things dashed and things like that. Okay. Again, if there's a box over here on the right-hand side that you don't see, if you go to the Windows pull down, and this works the same way in Photoshop and most Adobe Creative Cloud apps, you'll see it over here, and you can toggle it on or off, right? So for stroke, it's over here. This is alphabetized. Color, layers, right? So if you don't see it over here, then you might just need to toggle it on here in the window pull down menu. Okay. And again, I'm not pretending that that's intuitive and you would know that or guess that, but I just want to say that out loud in case you're really stuck. And then the more you use these apps, the more you'll be able to, the more you'll figure out. Okay? And then second nature becomes second nature to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually select things based off of what layer they're on. So I'm going to pull out my layers box. Okay, it's docked over here along the right-hand side, so I can just toggle that layers box on and off by clicking on the icon for it. And I'm going to look at the visible curves and then the scene silhouette curves. So the visible curves, there's a circle over here, and when I click that circle, it selects everything in that layer all at once for me, which is really nice. And I can go to the stroke now with all those things selected, and I can change the line weight. So maybe I change the weight to like 0.5. Okay, and now suddenly all those lines are a little thinner. Now I can go back to my layers, and I can go to scene silhouette curves, and I can click the circle there. And that'll select just all of the scene silhouette curves, right? The outline, right? The silhouette shape of this. And I can go here and change the weight as well. So maybe like 0.75, just a little beefier, right? Okay. So that's the extent of what I really want you to do in Illustrator, is make sure that you have these layers, that you're able to select things by layer, that you're able to adjust the line weights, right? In this case, you don't want something that looks like it was drawn with a really overly fat Sharpie or something, right? So there, you can have it too thick, and you can also have too thin of lines, okay? But doesn't that look nice? Oh yeah, so super. Anyway, and then once you're done, I'm gonna hit save, first of all. I'm just gonna sort of Control-S this or whatever. For whatever reason, once it say put a converted here at the end and save it as a different file type, I'm just going to delete that converted part. Just hit save, and it's going to, oh, well, you already have a file called this. You want to replace it? Yes, I do. I don't know why it won't just, oh, because now I'm saving it as a different version of Illustrator. I have 2020 Illustrator, I guess. Okay, so hit OK. Just saving. But the nice thing about this is I can also go to File, pull down, and save as. And I can save directly as a PDF. Okay, so in this case, I would say Vermilion_Joshua. Nobody actually calls me Joshua. They just call me Josh. AAD 267 _project 1 or something like that, right? And then it's ready to upload. With this, I'm just gonna, I'll just leave it as default. Save PDF, right? Okay. All right. Now that was a lot. That's why I wanted to save it for the second day, right? I didn't want you to have to sort of, it's a long timeline. But it's a short process once you get the hang of it. Trust me, I don't know. But the idea then is, again, we're setting the view, right? So we want to make sure that we set that isometric view. We want to make sure we get all the line work in the right way. Sometimes you might need to use that intersect command. Then it's about creating the line drawing and taking that three-dimensional object and making a flat two-dimensional drawing of it using the make 2D command. Okay. Then from there, it's about exporting it to Illustrator, opening it up in Illustrator, making sure the layers are correct, and then selectively changing, let's say, the different types of line work in your drawing and adjusting the line weights to accordingly, right? So that scene silhouette, that needs to be a little darker, a little thicker of a line weight than all the lines inside the drawing, okay? In my case, I think I used a 0.5 point line weight for all of the regular lines. And then for the scene silhouette, I just bumped it up a little bit to 0.75. I didn't even go up to 1, okay? And then you save the Illustrator file in case you need to go back and adjust the line weights more. But then you can save as a PDF, and the PDF is what gets submitted to Canvas, okay? And again, once you're ready to submit, hopefully this works. I really hope. It seems like it's going to work. You can go back to this is project 1, module 1, right? So you can go all the way back to project 1. At the very bottom, I put the link for how to submit your drawing. So you click on that, and then it says, okay, oh, sorry, I'm not in the student view. But if you was in student view, it'd have an upload button here, and it would tell you that it's a PDF and it's worth 100 points, okay? All right. All right, so that was a lot to digest in a short amount of time. And I'll be honest with you, I really need a glass of water. Can we take a 5-minute break? Jot down any questions and stuff that you have, or jot down something that didn't quite make sense. and then ask me to re-demonstrate it, I'm happy to do that. But let's take 5 minutes. When we come back in 5, I'll take questions and perform any clarification that we need to do before we talk about the Module 2 assignment that you have to do over the weekend in parallel with just finishing Project 1, okay? So let's take 5. That's 11:50. Actually, it's 11:52. Let's just come back at 12. So let's take 8 minutes, okay? So we'll reconvene about 12, about a minute before I'll get back on the mic and start shouting at people and saying, hey, 1 minute left or something like that, okay? Okay, just one more minute. And while it's happening, Isaac, I don't know if you're hearing me now, but so Isaac says, does the final product need to show 6 points of view of the shape? No, those are 6 completely different models from 6 different students in the example in Canvas. You just need to find the either the northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, find the most interesting view, okay? And that'll vary between, each model, each individual, right? Okay, so you only need one drawing like I just did, right? So this Illustrator, this is what your final will look like, wherever it is here. I'm not sure. Buried here underneath 16 windows. Yeah, this is what your PDF will look like, okay? All right, 12 o'clock, let's go ahead and get going. Another question from Amanda. I have no idea what you're talking about when you talk about layers. Okay, good. Glad that worked, Isaac. Okay, so let's talk about that because that's really important. So let me open up Rhino. Okay, so let's see here. I'm gonna go to my layers box. So over here on the right-hand side, there's a window with some settings. There's some tabs like properties. Hopefully there's a layers tab on yours. Rendering settings, material settings, a library, and some help stuff. I never even use the help stuff. I don't even know why it's there. But the layers stuff is basically what you can do is you can begin to put things on different layers, and you can turn those layers on and off or lock them, right? So in other words, oh, you can't see the screen. Oh, dear God. Okay, yeah, thanks. Thanks for pointing that out to me. All right, I'll attract X smarter for the rest of the time. Can you see Rhino now? I hope. Yeah, okay. Great. And so back to yours, Isaac, this is what your drawing will look like, right? Here in Illustrator. Okay, sorry. Back to Amanda's question then. Okay, so along here, the right-hand side here, we have properties, layers, all that sort of stuff. Hopefully you have the layers box. If not, you can toggle it on with this layers, toggle the layer panel. Okay. Not sure why it's over there. I'll put it over here. But anyway, so if you think about this for just a second, and let me just turn some of these things on, right? Let's say I have different sort of pieces of geometry, and sometimes this corresponds, in our, let's say in architecture to, or interiors or landscape to, let's say, floor, ground, walls, roof, trees, walkway, pavement, those sorts of things, right? You might want to put those on different layers so you can turn them on or off as you need them, or lock them so you don't accidentally drag the pavement stuff on the pavement layer around while you're trying to select all the things on all your walls or something like that, right? The same thing here. I put that overall 60 by 60 by 60 reference cube, that sort of allowable envelope, on a layer called cubes I can turn on or off, right? I put these things on their own layer called model. And when I was doing the demonstration diagrams for the ones that are going up in Canvas, then what I did is I started to create different layers for different things, right? And it's the same thing here, right? When it comes to it generated line work, it put those on different layers. So I could always turn those layers off, right? The make 2D layers, and then the make 2D drawing turns off, right? Okay. And so what it does is it separates the different types of curves in this drawing by layer. So for instance, if I turn just the regular curves off, right, then all I see is the scene silhouette curves because that layer is still on, right? So I just see the outline, right? So all the sort of holes in the overall outline of the model, right? And so what's important there is that as I start to keep things organized, then I can actually, it makes it easier to select different things, specific things, turn them on or off, turn the view of them on or off, or lock them or unlock them in order to manipulate them, okay? So layer management's key, and it all starts here at this layers panel, right? The layers box here, okay? Is there any way to get extra credit in this class? I don't know. Nobody has any points yet, so I don't think anybody needs extra credit at the moment. But it's an interesting question. I mean, honestly, learning this stuff in 5 weeks in a crash course like this with a steep learning curve, again, what I ask is you try your best, and you're not going to be punished for maybe not having things perfect, but if you're really trying, okay? So because the learning curve is steep. I mean, the best I can do here is sort of whet your appetite for a lot of, for all the tools and extra things that all these tools do, is just sort of whet your appetite and let them know that they're out there for you to explore. And so part of this is just sort of learning how to learn, because not only can we not go over a lot. I mean, this is the tip of the iceberg that we're doing on these things over 5 weeks. But these things also continually change. So 5 years from now or whenever, when you're out in the real world, the software might be called something different, or Autodesk might get bought out by Google, or these things happen actually a lot. And so the industry standards now might not be the industry standards 10 years or 15 years from now. So it's all about the sort of computational literacy, so that you can continue to stay up to date, right? And begin to again, it's lifelong learning, right? Learning how to learn is just as important. So learning how to work through, let's say, finding a way to do something here, like in Rhino or Revit next year. Kind of. Actually, SketchUp is like SketchUp was made so anybody could just use it, not know what they're doing. And as a result, there's some good things about SketchUp and there's some bad things. But Revit is like BIM. I mean, it's like whew. I wouldn't compare any of those three, right? I would say, I could always see a workflow where you would need all three of those. We're not going to cover SketchUp just because it seems like the most superfluous. But Rhino gives you the freedom to do the geometric modeling, but it's not necessarily geared towards architecture. And so with that freedom, there's pros and cons. And then with Revit, what you'll find out next week, with Revit, it makes all the assumptions for you as far as what an architecture of a building is. And so to do something like what we're doing in Rhino, you almost need to fool Revit into doing it, right? Whereas, so there's pros and cons to having it sort of set up for architecture versus just set up for geometric modeling. So that's really what I want you guys to sort of understand, is that sort of workflow back and forth between Rhino and Revit, because there's no one tool can do everything for you, right? I mean, that's the one thing I found through practice and in academia, because I've worked in offices and I've taught a bunch. And so, to me, the key thing is, understanding how these things can sort of work together, and how fluent they are in talking to each other, how you transfer data between one or the other without losing too much fidelity. I like a couple of views of my shape. Can I submit more than one perspective? Well, not perspective, isometric. But yeah, you could. And there's nothing stopping you from that. In which case, what you would do is you would just maybe make a multi-page PDF. Okay, so that was one question. Yeah. Well, we have time at the end to make feedback on progress. Yeah. So so after these questions, we'll talk a little bit about the Revit stuff that you need to do over the weekend, and then what I can do is I can allow individuals to share their own screen if they want just some quick feedback, and we just take a look at what you're up to. Okay. If you have any questions on this project, what's the best way to contact you? Email or on Canvas? Either or. Email I see quicker than Canvas. So if you have any quick questions, then yeah, email me. And again, my email is just josh.vermillion@unlv.edu. It's posted on the syllabus, so if let's see, I'm trying to keep up with these. Lots of questions, guys. Awesome. When making the image 2D, yeah, make 2D drawing, would you recommend using the tangent edges and turning off the hidden lines instead of turning on? Yeah, I think that worked better for me, Daphne. You can always experiment with that yourself if you need to, but it seemed like I got some cleaner results when I turned on tangent edges. And I still ran the Intersect tool as well. That's important. And then turning off the hidden lines. I mean, the hidden lines, I don't need the hidden lines. I don't want the hidden lines. You could make a nice drawing with the hidden lines, but at this point, I wouldn't worry about that. We'll get to that stuff when we actually start to make plans and elevations and sections, and start cutting those and then bring them in Illustrator to change line weights and line types. That'll be in module 3, I think. Sounds good, thank you. Okay, is there many errors that occur when transferring files between Rhino and Revit? Not necessarily errors, but it changes the nature. You have to do things in specific ways so that things don't just end up as, sort of unusable meshes and things like that. Is there a file size requirement? No, I don't think so. I don't know if there's a file size limit, but a simple line drawing like this shouldn't be that large at all. So I don't think you have to worry about that too much. Okay, thank you. Okay, file size requirement, just address that. Errors occurring when transferring files between Rhino and Revit. Yeah, so we'll talk about that next week. And again, I don't see it necessarily being too error prone. I mean, just to let you know kind of where we're going is I'll actually have you export your Rhino model and import it into Revit. And then I'll also tell you to try to model that model in Revit from scratch. And what you'll find out is that it's not so easy. And so what I want you to do is explore both of those workflows, and you decide which one you like the best. Okay. And so that's coming next week. That's down the pike. So we're jumping ahead a little bit. I don't want you to necessarily worry too much about that at the moment. Again, this is as much of you just making sure that you guys are learning and trying new things, as it is just like, having stuff to grade. To me, the grade is always trying to sort of keep up with how much you've learned and how much you understand. So, don't get me wrong, at the end, you'll have some beautiful things to put in your portfolio, I think. But the important thing is growth and learning, just as much as the final result, right? The process is pretty important because we're in academia. Any other quick questions? Like I said, if not, then what we can do is I'll just quickly talk about the other stuff to do over the weekend. And then we can have just some more one-on-one help session time, where if I need to, I can make any of you host and you can share your model and get some quick feedback, okay? So take a minute or two, see if you want to, if you have any questions or anything else you want to type in, or just shout at me. What? Oh. Uh-huh. Okay, well, I don't hear anything, but again, if more questions pop up, that's fine. Just know, then, at the end, we'll be done early, but at the end, you'll have some time to continue to ask questions. Okay, you're asking some great questions, so certainly want to make sure that we address everything we can today, so that you have a really productive weekend and you don't get frustrated. Okay. Again, the demonstrations will be uploaded to YouTube, so you can always go back and pause and sort of try to follow along then at your own pace if you need to. That's the idea. In the future, sorry, just to back up, like I'm teaching 12 credit hours of classes right now, like all at the same time. Like I got a class before this one for 2 hours. I'll have a studio after this one for 3 hours. And so all of them are new classes to me. I haven't taught them before. So like I'm doing everything from scratch. And so, but the idea is that when we do these demonstrations, that I'll be pre-recording them and putting them as homework that you do outside of class, that you watch and do things with. And then we'll actually do the work in class together, and or you can get feedback on it in class time. So sort of flip the classroom a little bit, which seems to lend itself more and more when we're doing the online. Okay, but we can be flexible as we need to be. And we have plenty of time when we do 2.5 hour sessions. I mean, I can't talk for 2.5 hours. It's a long time. So, I just try to be as flexible and trying to make these sessions really count as much as they can for what you think it would be really helpful. Okay. So I see one more question before we move on. How do I set the cube on a different layer? I'm still sharing my screen, right? So you guys can still see Rhino, I hope. So let's say I have this cube. I can go to the properties panel, right? And I can look and see what layer it's currently set on, and I can always change which layer it's set to, okay? So I could change this to hatch layer. It's going to change, since that's a layer has a different color, it's going to actually change colors at the same time. But I can change it to cube or whatever, right? I can change this stuff. Let's see what layer it's on. Okay, it's set on model. I'll make sure it's all set on model. Okay. So use that properties panel, right? Looks like a little color wheel, like a rainbow mapped around a circle. Okay. And it should, hopefully, if you dock all these things that you need over here, there's properties, there's layers, render settings. We'll do just a little bit of rendering here, like some soft clay model rendering, some just really soft shadow stuff, but you don't have to worry about that right now. Okay. We'll be doing a lot of post-production in Photoshop and Illustrator after the fact, which look really nice. Okay, so that's how you set layers. You select the object. If you already, let's say I'm gonna, everything from now on, I'm gonna join or make or create. I wanna be on the model layer, then you just make that the active layer. You make the check mark on that layer. Or cube, then I'll make the check mark on that layer, and then everything I make will be on that layer. But if I've made it already and I wanna change its layer, I just go to the properties, okay? And I can see what layer it's on, and I can change that if I need to. Do you join all the components to make the entire piece? No, these are all individual pieces. I'm not going to join them together, mainly because they're not going to join together because they're all going to intersect, right? And they're not going to be a watertight object or anything, right? So if I wanted to 3D print this, then I need to take an extra step or two. But you don't have to worry about joining them afterwards, okay? You have a composition, and honestly, you look at this and you go, oh, this is a great view, but this thing looks out of place. I'm going to slide it a little bit, right? You can always have that option to sort of, rearrange and fine tune and just do some small adjustments to your pieces before you make that final drawing, right? That make 2D, okay? All right, without any further ado, let's talk about Module 2 really quickly. Module 2 isn't really posted like Project 2. We're still doing Project 1. You have to finish that for Tuesday. But there is some stuff I want you to work on over the weekend. And it's really just revolving around watching the Revit LinkedIn Learning tutorials. It used to be called lynda.com. I don't know if you guys ever use that, but it's free through UNLV. And in this case, these tutorials are actually really good. I mean, they're better than, there's no point in trying to reinvent the wheel. In this case, it's one of those things where you won't always have like a bunch of weekend videos to watch through LinkedIn Learning. Don't worry, that's not, but these videos are the real deal. They're actually really helpful. And so that's why we're doing it this time around. So if you go to the modules, module 1, of course, you'll be completing over the weekend. Module 2, what I've done is, I haven't talked about Project 2 yet, but I just want to say over the weekend, so tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, while you're still completing Project 1, please also start to watch these Autodesk Revit video tutorials, right, through LinkedIn Learning. Really importantly, if you click this link, it takes you to the portal through the UNLV webpage, in which case it'll ask you for your ACE account. Once you enter in your ACE account, then it'll take you to LinkedIn Learning, but it'll log you in for free, okay? So then you can actually do all these things for free. Once you're logged in, my stupid, weird ACE account username, you just log in, right? Okay, so now you're logged into LinkedIn Learning. Now I can go back and I can say, okay, I could try to search for Paul Albin Revit 2021 Essential Training or whatever. I can just click on this link, okay? And so those will take me directly to these, right? And so what you're doing is the introduction, core concepts, interface basics, starting a project, modeling basics. I think I did 5 links, imports, and groups. Yeah, okay. I know I went all the way to 6. So 6 sketch-based modeling components, right? So creating floors, extruding roofs, things like that. I'm not going to worry about stairs and complex walls. If later on you want to come back next week and look at complex walls to try to figure out how to do something, then you can go for it. But I just wanted to get you guys started with sort of understanding what Revit is. And now that you kind of have just a little bit of knowledge of Rhino, you can start to see the differences, right? So, whereas Rhino is like, just model anything you want, complex as possible, right? It doesn't care. Revit makes an assumption that you're gonna like be drawing floor plans and you're gonna extrude them and you're gonna have like floors and walls and ceilings and roofs, right? And with that, you're really constrained in what you can do geometrically. But then again, there's trade-offs to each one. And so what I've seen a lot of firms do is they'll model something in Rhino, then they bring it into Revit, and they sort of convert it into the BIM model. And they can go back and forth and utilize the strengths of both tools back and forth. And there's a number of different ways you can go back and forth. We're not going to be able to do that extensively here in this class because of time. Although, and depending on which program you're in 367 Advanced Digital Media, you start to do some of those things. So again, that just depends on which major you're going into, interiors versus landscape architecture versus architecture. But I just want you'll start to understand the differences, and you'll start to understand that they really are different animals. And so it's not like one is better than the other, but they do different things. And the question then is how do you make them play well together, right? So that you can take into consideration, you can consider them complementary tools in your tool belt. Okay, that's always the idea here. Okay. So that's the other part of your assignment over the weekend, right? In addition to finishing project one, I want you to watch these videos and really take a look at them. And it'll take some time, so just try to set aside a little bit at a time. If you try to binge them all at once, golly, that might be mind-numbing. But some of these, at the beginning they start at only 1 minute or 2 minutes each. But then some of these start to get into 9 minutes each or 12 minutes each. And so it's a matter of just sort of making a little bit of time for yourself every evening or when it's convenient. So you budget an hour on Friday, budget an hour or two on Saturday, budget an hour or two on Sunday, budget an hour on Monday. Okay, right? That would be the most ideal. Right. These really will prepare you for what's coming next, though. Okay. All right. So with that said, it's 12:21, 12:20-ish. So here's the last part of the class. I'm here just to help troubleshoot, answer questions, and or to give feedback if we need to share a screen differently. Like I'll let you share your screen if you want some feedback. That said, it's work time. And if you need to peel off sooner rather than later, I'm fine with that as well. So class is effectively dismissed, but you can consider this to be sort of troubleshooting, extra troubleshooting time / office hours if you have any questions or need any help or just want some extra feedback. Okay, is that clear? And for some of you, I'll see you next week. And some of you might have some questions. If so, feel free to get on the mic and let me know. I've stopped sharing my screen. So if you need to share your screen or you want some feedback or you have a specific question about your model that you need me to look at, then I'll have to just make you host, and then you can share your screen. Okay. So just speak up on the microphone at this point. It's hard to keep track of all the chats now. Okay. At this point, I'm also going to stop recording, and that way, once I end the meeting for good, then it'll start to post-process the video on my side. Okay.